Hey everyone, Bradley Jack Design here with another tutorial. This is stemming from my other displacement maps tutorial. This time I'm going to show you how to put an object or a logo on fabric like a flag. I'm going to show you how to put it on a jersey texture, and then I'm going to show you how to put it on a brick wall. It's all the same strategy, it's all the same functionality, it's just different images that we're going to use. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a displacement map file for each of these different images. So to make a displacement map, what we want to do is we want to make the object we have black and white with a lot of contrast. So I'm going to move the black over, and I'm going to move the white over. I'm going to move the white over more. Okay, maybe move the black over this way. You want to have some grays and blacks and whites. So let me move the whites over a little bit. That's better. So we're going to use a gradient map to turn it black and white. I'm actually going to, let me duplicate this. I'm going to blur our initial object. In this instance, I'll do 5 pixels. Now that might be a little too much. You just want to blur it slightly. So depending on how big the image is going to depend on how big the blur is. So let me go back down to Gaussian blur. Let me change this to 3. And that's the blur we have. Now, of course, this isn't a smart object. I'm going to convert this to a smart object first because I can adjust the filter then. Because really what I just did was I blurred it 5 and then I blurred it 3 on top of the 5, but I just want to blur it 3 total. So this is the blur. Let's do it for the next object. So this is predominantly black and white already, but I'm going to go to gradient map, select black and white, and then I'm going to move this black over a bunch to get more detail in here. The more contrast detail we have, the better the gradient map's going to work. If there's not a lot of detail in here, it's not going to do anything. It's going to be like this, it's just going to look flat. So we're going to take this uniform as well and convert it to a smart object. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because this is a pretty big file. So you can see the jersey texture. I'm going to Gaussian blur this. Let's do 3 pixels and see what this looks like. Yeah, that's pretty good. That'll work for me. You can always go back and adjust it later. So we're going to go to the brick texture here now. Going to go to the adjustments, gradient map, click on that, switch it up, make it black and white, click over here, make it dark, make it lighter, hit OK. I'm just going to duplicate the background, convert it to a smart object, go up to filter, Gaussian blur, which should affect or do the 3 pixels like I had. That'll work. Okay, so I'm going to save these out. This is already named brick displace, so I'm going to save it as brick displace. I already have the file, so I'm just going to replace it. Yeah. Go over to the next object, flag displace example. Let's just change this to flag displace. It doesn't matter what you name these. You just need to make sure that you know what it is and you're not saving over what you actually want to use. So we'll save this as jersey displace and just spell it however you want. I don't care if it's spelled wrong. We'll do that. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the Gaussian blur and the gradient map. I'm going to do that on all of these because we want our original image. So we'll get rid of that, get rid of that. Get rid of the gradient map and that. All right. So I would actually then save this out as a different file. So let's do flag displace example, which I already had, but I'll just go ahead and replace it. You want to make sure you have the files separate so you don't accidentally save over something you already did. So example, and save this as example. Getting ahead of my computer. There we go. All right, so we'll go to the flag image. So here we are. So let's go to find something we want to put on here. So this is my logo. So let's put the logo on here, make it nice and big. I'm going to rotate it so it's at the same angle as the flag. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. but we're going to place it in here. So one thing I'm going to do that's a little extra, and you can do this later on. I don't want this flag to be red because I don't use red in my branding. So I already have this gradient map made. Boom, now it's blue. All right, that's what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have what you want to display selected. I'm going to go to Filter, Distort, Displace. I'm going to keep all of this stuff the same. Since it's a smart object, we can always change it. And I'm going to go to Flag Displace Example, what we have there. And when we do that, you can see it's displacing the logo to follow along the curves of the flag. So this is good. This is what we want. I don't like how this looks up here. It looks kind of funky, so I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to hit Command T, and I'm going to make the logo a little bit bigger. Move it down, move it up, maybe. I'm going to double click the displace, hit OK, and select our file again, flag displace. And then we'll see what this looks like. Doesn't look a lot better, but it looks good down here. You can play around with positioning later. So what I'm going to do, and this might actually help this. So this looks cool, but it's not realistic because this white wouldn't be pure white where the shadows are. So what we're going to do is we're going to double click in the layer. You can also right click and hit blending options. So I'm going to do that because that works every time. So then we have these blending options here. If you hold spacebar, by the way, it pulls up this hand tool and you can click and drag your stuff around if you're in full screen. That's just something that's really helpful. So here it says blend if gray. So I'm going to take the underlying layer. I'm going to hold the Option key and click the right side of this guitar pick. If you click on it, normally it'll pull the whole thing, but if you hold down Option and pull the right side, you can pull it over. And if you see our logo, you can see those shadows are starting to become a little more transparent and showing some of that blue. So I might pull the whites in a little bit since this is white, but you can pull these tabs around and play around with them, and you can see that this looks way more realistic because it is being a little transparent where the shadows are. So if I hit OK, this looks way more realistic. Now what I like to do is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to double click this layer to go to the blending options. I'm going to set this back to just normal. So we move those back to normal, and I'm going to set a top layer to either hue or color. Now it's white, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to use color. So now you can see that the shadows are black and white instead of blue. So this is how you can put something on a piece of fabric like this. I'm going to show you another example. This is a white logo, so it's a little, it's a little easy because it's one color. So I'm going to make this green, and I'm going to pull in a different logo. This is my fantasy football logo. The New England Trading Company. So we're going to make this a little bit smaller. We're going to rotate it so it's the same angle as the flag. Make it a little bit bigger. Maybe switch the angle up. There. And we're going to do the same thing we just did. So I'm going to go up to Filter, Distort, Displace. I'm not going to change any of the settings. We'll change it on this one, and I'll show you how it can look really bad or really good. I'm going to open it, and there it is, displacing. Now, if we want to change it, we can go to Displace and make it, say, 25 and 25. Every time you change it, it's going to want you to select the file you want to use. So like this is like real wavy, you can't really see what anything is. So let's change it to 15 and 15. We'll see what that looks like. Flag displace. So that's better. So what we're going to do is, I'm trying to think of what I want to do here. What I'm going to actually do is I'm going to create a color overlay on this and make it white. So I'm going to make it so there's a base of white. And then let me see what happens if I go in here to the blending options. I can move this over and you can see it's showing the fabric underneath it like we did before. So we'll move these over a little bit, play around with what you think looks good, and I'm gonna hit OK. So here's this random color. You can see just the shape of what the logo is on here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna duplicate this and take off that color overlay. I'm going to go into the blending options and set it back to normal. So then you can see the whole logo. And I'm going to set that to multiply. And when you do that, it's going to just multiply on top of the existing white layer. So it's showing all of the shadows that we have in it, but it's showing the colors of the logo that we want. So that's how you can do it with a white logo. That's how you can do it with a colored logo. So that's how you can put it on a flag. We're going to use the same method here for this jersey. So I'm going to zoom in here. And I'm going to grab just my fantasy football logo, which is right here. I'm going to toss it in there. We're going to do the same thing. So we're going to make it a little bit smaller. We're going to move it up. I'm going to go ahead and shear it a little bit so it matches the angle of what the jersey is. It's being a little bit laggy because I have all these files open. Use free transform. I should be able to pull this down. It's clearly not letting me. If you hold down the command key, it'll let you pull down. I was not doing that. And we're going to move this around a little bit. The angle's a little too much, but it's fine for this example. So we've got it in place. We go to filter, just click displace again. I'm going to do 10 and 10. And I'm going to select the jersey displace and hit OK. Now this jersey is already white, so we don't need to make that underlying layer. See, so this is, I'll tell you what happened here. So I'm gonna hit multiply. So you can see, this would look good if you want to put it on like a sweater or something like that, but this is not really the effect we want. So what we would need to do is go into the original displacement file. So let's go to Audition instead of what I want to go to. So here's the jersey displace. So we're going to open this up. I might have selected the wrong file too. That's actually very likely. Let's go back to where we were. So let's double click this displace, hit OK. Yeah, I selected the wrong one. So I'm going to hit jersey displace, and it should get rid of all those little dots. That's why you want to blur it so it looks a little more realistic. If you do it if you just use the original one, it's going to look like this and it might not look good. So there you go. So now it's more clean, but you can see here it's still following the areas. Now this is again white, so I just set it to multiply. If this was a colored jersey, like let's go here. Let me just go to the adjustments. Let's just throw a quick gradient map on top of this. I'm going to hit Command I on the gradient map to reverse the mask. And then I'm just going to paint back in where it goes. I'll just paint it here. So there, that's where it is. But I need to tweak this gradient map because this looks like trash. Move this white way over here. Move this green way over here. That's better. Now let's move this green over just a little bit more. There. So what we can do is we can go select our logo layer. We can select color overlay and we can make it white. So boom, there it's white. We're going to duplicate the layer. We're going to get rid of the color overlay. It's already set to multiply. So all we have to do is go to the original bottom displacement that's white and edit the blending options for the layer. So we can hold down the Option key, drag this over, drag it over some more. There it goes. until it becomes transparent. Now you see it might not be doing much because there's not as much contrast as the last image. But let's say that's good enough. So that's how you can put a logo on a jersey. Just make sure you have enough contrast and make sure you blur the image, or else you're going to see the full texture of what the jersey is. So that's how you can put it on a jersey. Lastly, this is actually pretty sweet. So we can do it with the brick wall. So I'm going to go and I'm going to pull my logo in here. We're going to throw it in the middle. And this is already blue, so I don't really need to change anything. But, you know, for continuity, let's just toss a gradient map on here to change the color of it. If you guys haven't watched my gradient map tutorial, go ahead and watch that. It shows you how to change the color of anything to be whatever color you want using a gradient map. So you can see here I'm making this brick wall look terrible. See what that looks like. But go check that video out. I'm actually not going to do that. It looks terrible. Anyway, so here we go. We've got our logo here. So we can select the logo, go up to filter, go to displace. 10 and 10 is always a good place to start. You can play around and see what different numbers look like. We're going to select our displace file. It's going to displace it then. And boom, there you go. We've got it displaced to the texture of the wall. Now this of course looks terrible because we need to right click, go into the blending options for the layer. Give it a sec to load, hold down the option key and drag the right side of that pick over. And you can see it already looking better. So that looks pretty sweet. I might drag this other one over just a little bit. Play around with those, see what you think looks good. Now it looks good by itself. But I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate it. Go into the blending options. Set it back to normal. You can always duplicate this layer before you do these options, you know, and then just turn it off. But then I'm going to set this to color. So now we've got these black and white edges of this logo. It looks like this looks like it was painted on this wall. So if you need to mock something up, like if you drew some graffiti and you want to throw it up on a brick wall, this would be a good way to do that. If you have a fantasy football logo you want to put on a wall somewhere, maybe you want to put it on the outside of a stadium somewhere that says champs, you know, if you're good at fantasy football like me, you can put it on there. So let's throw this logo on here, see what this looks like. So we're going to throw the logo on here and we're going to do the same steps we did before. I'm actually going to duplicate this layer and hide it. So I'm going to show you a couple different ways you can do this, but it's all the same in the end. So I'm going to go to our filter. I'm going to make it white first. White. And hit enter. Filter. Let's try that again. Filter. Displace. 10 and 10. Then I'm going to select our brick displace file, open that. Progress. So now it's displaced. Double click in the open area or right click for blending options. Hold down the option key, pull over the right side of that pick until you get it to look how you want. So that's real gritty. Let's move it over just a little bit more. Yeah, that'll work. Hit OK. I'm going to turn our original layer back on, but it doesn't match up to the displacement. So if you hold down the option key, you can just click and drag the displace and it'll apply it and copy it to another layer. So if we just drag it to the top, to this layer, it will duplicate it and then it will follow the layer. Then we can select this top one, we can select multiply, and then we've got this displacement on top of this layer. Now this doesn't look as good as the logo did, so you might have to play around with what looks right for what you want to do. But I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to use displacement maps to put things on brick walls or textures. If you guys have any suggestions for a tutorial, go ahead and let me know. Drop some comments below on what you would want to see. If you want to see any of the other design breakdowns from me, go ahead and let me know what you would want from there as well. Other than that, make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks.